Hi everyone, it's Lori. Welcome to my channel. In this video, we are going to dive into my favorite editing tool, the tone curve. Do you really know how to use it? If you like this video, please click the like button and subscribe for more videos. I publish a couple times a month. Let's jump right into Lightroom. Hi everybody. So I teach a lot of photo editing workshops, courses, and I mentor students one-on-one. And I find that the tone curve is the most underutilized editing tool available in Lightroom. I find that most photographers just pass it by, they don't really understand it, and not sure how it really impacts their images. So I want to walk you through the tone curve today, all of the different options available, and hopefully give you some tips of how to use it in different images along the way. So the first thing we're going to do is actually understand the tone curve box, and then I will walk through a variety of images to show you how I would use the tone curve to make some adjustments to the image. So I always start with the basic panel first. So I come in and I look at my histogram and I make any adjustments right here to my exposure. If I want to add any texture clarity, but I'm always making sure that I've got the exposure balanced and ready to go. Now next, you may want to use the new mask tools to edit your image. So there may be some things that you want to do before you start with a tone curve. You could also do the tone curve first. It's really up to you and your preference when you're editing. So I'm going to minimize the basic and we're going to focus right now on the tone curve option right here. So first what I want to do is give you a little bit of the details of what is included in this panel. Now, if you already use the tone curve, you could skip ahead to when I start editing. So the first thing to notice is under adjust, you have this parametric S curve that is available to you. Now, this is the parametric curve that allows you to have sliders to adjust your highlights, lights, darks, and shadows. So the tone curve follows the histogram. So up at the top is going to be the brightest areas of our image, so we can see the highlights. If we bump those up, and the bottom of the curve is going to be your darks and your shadows. So you can see we can lower those. So this curve gives you that functionality where you can move the sliders individually. But the true benefit of this tool is that you can also adjust the almost like levels. So this is moving our darks way over on the tone curve. So it gives us all this room in our shadows to make adjustments. So it's opening that up to where we have more space. So you can see if I reset this, let's reset it, reset all. It starts with a 25%. So it splits the histogram into quarter sections. And so when you adjust the shadows, it's only going to adjust within that section. So you can see as we move down. So then we'd have to go to our darks and we could adjust that down. Now, if we want to impact more of the histogram in that area, then what we want to do is move the slider over. So we can move it over to maybe 50%. Now when I adjust the darks up or down, it's moving more of that area. So it's making a bigger adjustment. So that is one way. So I'm going to go ahead and reset again. Let's go ahead and in this image, I want to open up a little bit of the shadows. So I'm going to move that just a little bit more over. And then for the bright side, I want to impact the light areas, not the brightest areas. So let's start with our shadows. And I'm going to open those just a tiny bit. You can see how it slowly moved the tone curve up. Also, by making a larger area here, it's making a slighter curve, a smaller curve. So it's impacting the shadows, but not as drastic. Now I'm going to come over to the lights area and I'm going to bump those up just a little bit, or we could also darken them. So if we want to bring those lights down, this was a sunrise image, so giving it a little more of a mood. So now we have a little bit of an S curve, but it's a different shape. So we've bumped up the shadows a little bit and brought down the lights. But you can see it's a very soft curve because we use these sliders. So this parametric curve is a very powerful tool to impact your image. It does take some playing around. So what I would encourage you to do is play around with the sliders here, play around with the bottom, and just see how it impacts your image in different ways. So let me show you the before and the after. It's a very subtle difference, but if you look at the blacks of the sand, they're softened just a little bit, and the lights are just a little bit moodier. So it's just making a small tweak to the image. Okay, so that's the parametric curve. Let's go ahead and reset. And to reset, all you do is right click and you can reset. You can reset a variety of ways, so that makes it really helpful. So the next is the tone curve that I use the most, and that's just this circle gray. Now this tone curve allows you to place points in the image wherever you want to make adjustments. So I could come in, and again, if I wanted to open up these shadows a little bit, I could drop a point right there, and then I just move it with my mouse or trackpad up. Now I can come over to the light areas and I can move that back down just a little bit, maybe even a little bit more. Then I can come up to the whites and maybe I want to bring those down or leave them up. Could come to the middle of the image and see how I want to impact that. Now, if it starts getting a little weird looking, you can always change and move your points in different directions. You can also reset. So be sure to think about all of that. I'm going to just open up those blacks a little bit more. So this is very similar to what we did with the parametric, but I'm hand doing it. So I'm picking points and adjusting. So I can move the points down, I can move the points up, and really customize and personalize my image. So again, before and after. These are very small adjustments that we're making to the image with the tone curve. So this gray circle option just allows you to put your points and move those anywhere you like them on the tone curve. Now the next three options are our color options, and these allow us to do some color process that's really fun. So we've got the first channel is red on the top, green on the bottom. So that is if we wanted to add some additional red tones to the highlights. You can see how that impacts, but we could do just a little bit. We could also bring down any reds, adding some green tones. So that's making that water a lot more aqua. And so that's giving us a very video kind of cross-processed look. All right, I'm going to reset that. And now let's go over to the green channel. This is giving us green and magenta. So again, if I want to add a little magenta to this sunset, I could do that right there. Now I could also come down and work within the HSL panel, but this is allowing us to focus the color in the highlights. And then we could come down to our shadows, and maybe we don't want that magenta, we want to add some of that blue color. So we could come in with that and then again lower and give us that magenta tone. So it's a whole different kind of color look that we could do to our image. So let me reset that. And we can come over to the blue channel, and it's blue and yellow. This channel works nice to impact your blue tones. Look how just a pop in the middle really brings up those blues, or we could come down to add a little warmth. So we can maybe add some warmth in our shadows, bringing out more of those golden tones, and then come up and maybe add a little bit more of the blue in the highlights. So again, just modifying the look of this image, brightening it up a little bit, and emphasizing those blue tones. Now you'll notice there is a tool right here that you can use. So this is a adjust point curve tool. You can bring it over and drag it in a part of your image. And then usually you want to be on this gray point, and you can move it up or down to impact your image, and it will move the tone curve. Now I personally do not like to use this tool. There may be photographers that like it. I find that I get things too out of whack, and what I like to do is customize by putting the points. Now, something to note, you can put as many points as you want to make small adjustments. So look how that's just adjusting the sky up or down in that one area. And if you look at the histogram, it's kind of making it dance. So that's the beauty of the tone curve. We can come in and just make these little tiny micro adjustments to our image to personalize it. All right, so let's reset this channel. Now I want to show you a great tool and tip if you are just getting started with the tone curve, and that is to actually consider using presets. So in Lightroom, they gave us some new presets a while back, And there's a section. So presets can be found right over here under your navigator. And so I have user presets. And then if you come down, scroll down, you'll see presets that Lightroom has included. So the first one I want you to look at is there's a section called Curve. And when you open that up, there are several tools in here. So there's cross process. And if we go over to our red channel, we can see how they created this S curve to get this look. You can also go to the blue. So they raised the bottom, the blue area, and they lowered the golden yellow area. And then here is the green and magenta channel, and here is the red green channel. So this is just a way for you to get familiar with tone curves. You can go to the flat. So this is if you want to do kind of a matte look. So you would raise your blacks and lower your whites to get that S curve, and then it gives you that kind of flat look. This is lifting the shadows, so leaving the whites and highlights alone, kind of lifting those shadows up, which also gives a unique look to the image. And then there's an option for a strong S curve. Now this one is very strong, but you can see what it does to the image. Now, if you wanted to create your own preset, you could do that. So if you wanted to create a soft S curve, you can just come up to preset, click the plus sign, and create it. And you'd have your own tone curve. So I have some color tone curves that I've created. So I have a magenta. So if we look at the tone curve here and we go over to, I've got the magenta being pulled down just a little bit. I have a teal tone curve. And I think if we go over to, let's see, again, playing with the greens there, very subtle. There's a warm summer day. I have a warm summer red and green, and these would work with different images. So they're not going to work with every image, but those are some options that you could create your own. Now, another way to get familiar with tone curves is if you go to the travel section or even the landscape section, and you start looking at these presets. If you come over, you will see where they've made tone curve adjustments. So this is making this really washed out, kind of a really bright look, and you can see the tone curve that was created. So as we go down, presets almost always have tone curves that are created along with them. So you can see the various tone curves and what they do to an image, and it's a great way to get familiar with them. So most of these landscapes really brighten the image. If you go to the travel section, you can see some different tone curves where they are bringing down the shadows and playing with the image in a different way. Now remember, with a preset, you can still come in and make your own adjustments. So it gives you a nice starting point if you are new to editing. All right, so let's go look at some other images and see how I would use the tone curve to make some adjustments. All right, let me close, let me open this just for a second and make sure that I've got my history cleared out. All right, so we're going to start here with this image. I've already done my basic edits to the image, and now I want to play around with the tone curve. So let's start first using the parametric. And for this image, I want to brighten up the shadows just a little bit. So I'm going to increase that area. And then I've got these gorgeous highlights in the middle that I'm going to want to open up. So we're going to work with those two areas, our lights and our shadows. So I'm going to come in with the slider and look how that's just brightening that up, bringing that all the way up. For this image, I had the ability to do that because it has such a dark background. Now what I want to do is play with these lights. So I want to brighten those a little bit. And maybe I want to come in and play with the darks just a little, or even bring back those shadows just a little bit. So I like that. Now what I want to do is go to the blue and yellow channel, and I want to see what happens if I play with that yellow. So maybe going, adding a little bit of that golden tone, and I can just play with where I add it. I could also try just bringing that down, and that's doing a little bit. Let's also go over to the green and magenta and see what happens That's if I add a little bit of green tones or a little bit more of that magenta. I think I'm going to leave that one alone. All right, so for this, if I look at before and after, I was able to bring out some of that bokeh and just really highlight some of the golden edges on these little dried flowers. All right, let's go to our next image. And for this one, let me also make sure that I've got it back to basics. So this is where I did my basic adjustments. And now I can come in and decide if there's something that I want to do with the tone curve here. So I'm going to start with the point tone curve now and show you how I would work with this. So I'm thinking for the blacks, I want to raise those just a little bit. You can see just make a tiny, tiny lift. And what it's doing is it's moving it over to the right in the histogram. So I'm just going to slide that up a little bit, which really opens this up and gives it a softer look. For the highlights, I want to come in and just increase those just a little bit in the whites and highlights. And then in the middle, which is called the midtones, I'm going to just bring those down. So this is a very custom look. And if you look at before and after, now I think I want to brighten these highlights maybe even just a little bit more. So you can see before and after, just bringing those up, and then the niceness of that, how much brighter the black tones are. I can even bring those maybe up a little bit more, kind of to give a little contrast there, and continue to maybe raise those. So it's all a personal preference of how you want to showcase your image and share kind of your story with it. So now we could come over and let's go to the green channel, and I want to see what happens if I add a little magenta tone. So just a tiny bit, and we could do it to the midtones, or we could come over here to the highlights. And again, this is going to be a personal preference based on how you want this image to look. So that's before and that's after. So just adding a little bit of that. All right, let's go to some flower images. And this particular image, I am going to come back to the beginning because I want to show you from starting point. All right, so for this image, again, I've got some ideas here, and I am wanting to see what it does to work within these regions. And I want to work within the highlights this time. So I'm going to drag that over, and I'm going to drag the lights over. I want to really brighten the details in the flower. So I've adjusted this area to give me a little bit more to work with. And I'm going to come in and just pop those highlights a little bit. And then let's try to pop the lights. Not too much, just a little bit. And for the darks, I'm going to bring those down, and the shadows, bring that down just a little bit. Now I can see I've got a nice big water spot there. So let's go ahead and correct that while we're here. Sometimes that happens when you start brightening or lightening an image. So I'm just going to use the clone tool and see if I can get rid of that really quick. And there we go. All right. So now we're back to, let's go back to our tone curve. And we started with that area, and I'm liking that. I'm going to go ahead and go to the point adjustment, and I'm going to see what happens. I do some custom points here. I'm just going to drag that down. So this is more the look that I'm wanting. I'm wanting this kind of moody, really bringing out the softness and details of this peony flower that is about to burst open. So I like that a lot better. And this is one reason I like using the gray point. I can follow my histogram and then bring down this dark area to really impact the image. So here's before and here's after. So I think this really showcases the beauty of working with the tone curve. I'm able to bring out those tones and with just a couple clicks on the tone curve. Now for this image, I could play with some of the color tones, but I'm not really sure that's needed. We could see if we wanted to adjust the green, so I can make it greener. I could also bring those down, which makes my pink a little pinker in the peony. So again, before and after. So a nice tone curve adjustment with that image. Let's come over to this flower image, and let me go back as well to my starting point. And for this image, I really think the tone curve can make a nice impact. Let's go ahead and go, we've got our crop here. All right, so let's start here, and I'm going to just use the standard tone curve. And what I want to do is see how I can darken the shadow area. I'm not going to worry too much about the blacks, but I want to just put my point right there. I'm going to bring that background down. I'm going to make it pretty dark because I want the emphasis to be on these flowers. Now I'm going to come up, and there's just a little bit right here in the lights, and I'm going to brighten that just a little bit and bring that over. All right, now I'm going to come over to the blue area, and for those highlights, I want to add some more yellow. So I'm just going to drag that down. Look how quick, and it's just impacted the highlight area of my scene. And then for the background, the darks, I can come in and I can add a little more green if I want. I could also add some magenta tones, but I think just a touch of the green could make a difference. And you can tweak these. So you could decide you want to bring that yellow up just a little bit and make that adjustment. So with just 3 quick adjustments, I was able to really impact this image. Let me show you. This was the before, and this is after. I'm not sure why my crop changed, but I can go ahead and recrop it. Let's move that over, enter, and again, I can show you this was before the tone curve adjustments, and this is after. Now, we could have impacted this background using the new mask tools. There's lots of other ways that we could impact this image, but I just wanted you to see the benefit of using the tone curve and how you can really customize based on the histogram of your image. All right, let's look at one more image together. And let's go to this landscape scene. And I'm going to come down to the import. So this image was previously edited, and it actually has an oil paint on it. It has some different things that I did to the image. But now what I want to do is make some final tweaks to it using the tone curve. So I'm going to use the point curve again. You can see we've got a pretty large spread on our histogram. So I've got lots of area that I can work with. So I'm going to first come in and see what happens if I bring down the darks a little bit. My idea is to give this a little bit of a moody, kind of a little bit moodier look, and then brighten some of the foliage areas. So I'm going to come over and I'm just going to pop the greens and the brights just a little bit. And then here in the midtones, I think I'm going to move that down also just a little bit. Now we can come over to the blues. And again, I've got lots of yellow in this image. So I'm just going to play with giving it a little bit more of a golden look. And then if we come over to our greens, if we bring that down, we can see how we can shift the color of the greens. So if I want it to be darker, if I want it to be a little bit more on the yellow side, I can raise those. And I could do it in the shadows. I can come over. So you can decide kind of a little bit about your color tones and where you want to make those adjustments in your highlights, which I think that's going to work, just giving it a little bit less green. And remember, you can just slide it just ever so lightly. That's going to reduce the yellow, and this is going to give me more of that yellow look. So let me show you if I go back to the beginning. So this was the image, which was fine, but I thought it looked just a little flat. And this is with this dramatic, a little bit more dramatic edit. So using the tone curve to add a little drama, you could adjust it, however much you want, but it's just a nice way to come in and take something that maybe is a little flat, solid edit, but add a little drama to it. And you can decide how much or how little of that kind of drama look you want. So I could raise it back up, and there's the difference. So I hope that you will play around with the tone curve. If you're just getting started, don't forget you've got these great presets that are going to give you some really nice ideas on how to make your edits. One last trick that I want to make sure you know about is if you want to create a matte look to your image, all you have to do is raise your blacks, lower your whites in this corner, and it's going to give you that kind of dreamy, matte look to your image. So this used to be really popular. I still like it for some images. I think it works nice. We could come over to this image, and if we wanted to give this that kind of matte look, raise the blacks, lower the whites, and it's just going to give it a real softness. It's definitely a great way to soften the dark areas. So this would give us that matte finish. So that's a trick to know. The other trick, and I will reset that, is pulling down your midtones, which are in the center of the image. So you can come down and just bring those down to give a moodier look, or you could pull them up to brighten. So I'll show you with this image. If we wanted to come in and just brighten the midtones, we could just come in and raise that middle area. Or of course we could darken. So those are my final two great tips for you, creating a matte look or working within the midtones to just give a little pop to an image, or you could give a little bit of a moody look by lowering the midtones and giving that dramatic look. So have fun playing with the tone curve, everybody. If you have questions, send me a note, comment. Hope that you will like this video and subscribe to my channel for more creative editing. Thanks, everybody.